There's a quiet dread that visits on a Sunday evening, a slow, heavy feeling. It is the soul remembering it must soon put on its uniform, the professional mask. We leave a part of ourselves at the door each morning, believing our job is a place we must simply endure. The common mistake is to believe our only choice is to survive, to see our work as a prison, a place where we trade our life force for a paycheck, and wait for our real life to begin after 5 o'clock. And so we live a split life. The 8 hours we sacrifice, and the few hours we desperately try to feel alive. But what if this is a profound misunderstanding of the nature of the soul's curriculum? What if the very job you endure is the most effective spiritual gym you could ever ask for? What if that difficult boss, that annoying colleague, that frustrating project are not obstacles to your growth, but are, in fact, the assignments? Drawing on the deep wisdom of Carl Jung, we are going to radically reframe the modern workplace. We will learn to see it not as a prison, but as an alchemical laboratory, a place where your shadow, your persona, and your deepest unhealed complexes are revealed with stunning clarity. This is not a guide to finding a new job. It is a guide to finding your soul right where you are. We will learn to decode our daily triggers not as annoyances to be avoided, but as sacred clues from our own self. So if you are tired of leaving your soul at the door each morning, if you are ready to stop waiting for a different job to feel alive, then let us begin the great work of finding the gold hidden in the lead of your daily life.
Your workplace is not made of cubicles and conference rooms. It is made of stories. It is a modern-day theater, a mythic stage where the oldest human dramas are played out in professional attire. This is a profound Jungian insight. The conflicts that drain you, the dynamics that confuse you, they are rarely about the tasks on your to-do list. They are about the ancient archetypal roles we are all unconsciously playing. Once you learn to see the stage and name the characters, you are no longer a victim of the play. You become a conscious observer. So let's look at the cast. First, there is the king or the queen, your boss. This figure is a powerful hook for our parental complex. They are the container for our unresolved relationship with the father or mother archetype. We unconsciously project onto them our deep-seated needs for approval, our rebellion against authority, or our fear of judgment. The emotional charge you feel around your boss often has very little to do with them as a person and everything to do with the ghost of the parent you carry inside you. Then there is the rival sibling, the competitive colleague, the one whose successes trigger a quiet, shameful pang of envy in you, the one whose mistakes you secretly delight in. This dynamic is a direct portal to your shadow. It is a mirror for your own disowned ambition, your own hunger to be seen, your own fears of scarcity. And of course, there is your own role, the persona, the mask of the competent expert, the helpful team player, the rebellious creative, a carefully constructed identity you wear for 8 hours a day, often at the expense of your own authentic self. Let me tell you the story of Sarah, a project manager, brilliant and dedicated. For years, she felt suffocated by her boss, Mr. Harris. He was a classic micromanager, constant check-in emails, questioning every decision. Sarah felt a rage that was completely out of proportion. She felt, in her words, like a teenager whose father won't let her borrow the car. And in that one simple metaphor was the entire diagnosis. The common mistake would be to focus on Mr. Harris's management style, to try and change him. But the real work was to understand the intensity of Sarah's own reaction. Her frustration was not about the emails. It was the reactivation of her father complex. Growing up, her own father was loving but incredibly controlling and critical. She was never trusted to make her own decisions. Now, decades later, her unconscious was projecting that entire dynamic onto her boss. She wasn't an adult employee reacting to a manager. She was a wounded inner child reacting to a father. And the alchemy goes deeper. There was a colleague on her team, Mark, who was always pitching bold, flashy ideas in meetings. Ideas Sarah secretly thought were half-baked. And yet he always got the spotlight. It drove her crazy. She judged him as an arrogant show-off. But the wisdom of Carl Jung would ask us to look in the mirror. Sarah's professional persona was that of the quiet, competent, behind-the-scenes worker. She had exiled her own desire to be seen, her own ambitious, creative spark into her shadow. Mark was simply living out the very quality she had disowned in herself. Her irritation with him was her own golden shadow, begging to be integrated. Your workplace is a relentless mirror. The people who trigger you the most are your greatest teachers. They are unpaid gurus, showing you with perfect clarity where your own inner work lies. The micromanager is not just a micromanager. They are an invitation to heal your relationship with authority. The incompetent colleague is not just incompetent. They are an invitation to examine your own shadow of the rescuer or your own fear of imperfection. So I invite you to pause with me here, just for a moment. Bring to mind your biggest frustration at work, that one person or situation that reliably drains your energy. Now, with compassionate curiosity, ask yourself a new question. Not, why are they like that? But, if this person were a character in my soul's play, what role are they playing? What ghost from my past do they resemble? What disowned part of myself are they reflecting back to me? You don't need the answer right now. Just holding the question is the beginning of the alchemy. It is the first step in transforming your cubicle from a prison into a sacred laboratory. So now that we can see the stage and name the actors, how do we move from being an unconscious character in the play to becoming its conscious director?
The goal is not to change the stage. You cannot fire your boss or transform your colleague. The goal is to change your relationship to the play, to move from an unconscious actor to a conscious alchemist. This is the great promise of all inner work, applied to the place you spend a third of your life. It is the art of using your daily frustrations as the raw material for your own transformation. And it begins with 3 practical and discrete tools. The first tool is the symbolic lens. This is a powerful reframing practice. Before you walk into a difficult meeting or begin a frustrating task, you consciously choose to look at it through a new lens. You ask yourself a simple, mythic question. If this were a scene in my soul's heroic journey, what is my character's true assignment here? Is it to practice courage by speaking one difficult truth? Is it to practice patience by enduring a boring meeting with mindful presence? Is it to practice sovereignty by holding a firm but kind boundary? This one question shifts you from the personal to the archetypal, from "I have to deal with my annoying boss" to "I am here to learn the lesson of the tyrant king." Suddenly, the meeting is no longer a chore. It is a training ground, a level in the video game of your own becoming. Let's go back to Sarah, our brilliant project manager. She was trapped in a power struggle with her micromanaging boss, Mr. Harris, reacting like a rebellious teenager. She began to use the symbolic lens. Before her weekly check-in, she would pause, and she would ask, "What is my assignment today?" And the answer that arose was not to fight him. The answer was to become the unshakable mountain. So she would walk into the meeting, not with defiance, but with a quiet, solid, grounded presence. She prepared her reports so impeccably, answered his questions so thoroughly, that she gave his anxiety nothing to hook into. She was not fighting the king. She was calming the storm within the kingdom. And over time, a miracle. Mr. Harris began to relax. He checked in less. Sarah hadn't changed him. She had changed the dynamic by changing herself. The second tool is the micropause. This is your emergency brake for emotional hijacking. It is the art of building your inner container, as we have explored before. The moment you feel that hot flash of a trigger, that surge of anger at a colleague, that wave of anxiety before a presentation, you pause before you speak, before you react. You take one silent, conscious breath. And in that breath, you feel your feet on the floor. You feel the weight of your body in the chair. You are not suppressing the emotion. You are creating just enough space to move from unconscious reaction to conscious response. This 1-second pause is the difference between being a puppet of your complexes and the master of your own inner house. And the third tool is the end-of-day release. This is a 5-minute ritual to leave work at work. The mistake we make is carrying the psychic residue of the office home with us, replaying the arguments, stewing in the resentments. The end-of-day release is an act of energetic hygiene. Take out a journal, and for 5 minutes, write down the top 3 frustrations of the day. And for each one, ask the alchemical question: what is this frustration trying to teach me
about my own patterns. Maybe your anger at a lazy colleague is teaching you about your own overdeveloped sense of responsibility. Maybe your fear of speaking up is teaching you about a deep-seated need for your voice to be heard. After you have found the clue, you close the book. And as you close it, you consciously, symbolically, release the energy of the day. You leave it on the page. You do not carry it into your evening. Pause with me here. I invite you to a micro practice right now. Think of just one recurring frustration at your job. See it in your mind's eye. Feel the familiar annoyance. Now, take a slow, deep breath. And as you exhale, ask that frustration as if it were a wise teacher. What are you a clue for? Don't search for the answer. Just let the question hang in the air. That is the beginning of the alchemy. That is the moment you stop being a prisoner and you start becoming a scientist in your own soul's lab. This is what all Carl Jung's work points towards, not an escape from the messiness of life, but a conscious engagement with it. But this raises a new, profound question. If we can find meaning and growth in any job, what does that mean for our idea of success? What is the true measure of a promotion in the eyes of the soul?
The great lie of the modern workplace is that your value is measured by your title. We chase the external promotion, the corner office, the bigger paycheck. These are the goals of the ego, and they are not wrong. They are simply incomplete. There is another kind of promotion, a quieter, deeper, and infinitely more satisfying one. The inner promotion. This is not a promotion in rank. It is a promotion in consciousness. It is the soul's measure of success. You get an inner promotion the day you handle a conflict with your boss without being hijacked by your father complex. You get an inner promotion the day you can celebrate your colleague's success without the sting of envy, because you are busy working on your own garden. You get an inner promotion the day you can speak your truth in a meeting, not with aggression, but with a calm, grounded authority. You may be in the exact same job title for years and be making incredible, profound progress on your journey of individuation. This is the work of the self. Let's go back to Sarah, our project manager. She began to practice the alchemical toolkit. She used the symbolic lens. She practiced the micropause. She did her end-of-day release. Her job did not change, but her relationship to it was transformed. Mr. Harris, her boss, was no longer a tyrant king. He was a case study in the anxious ego, an opportunity for her to practice the unshakable mountain. Mark, her flashy colleague, was no longer a rival. He was a mirror, reflecting back her own hungry, creative spark, an invitation to own her own ambition. Her job had become her spiritual gym. Each frustrating email was a new weight to lift. Each difficult meeting was a new yoga pose to hold. She was getting stronger, quieter, more whole. And then, the great paradox. When you stop fighting your job and you start using it as your alchemical lab, one of two things will happen. Either you will discover a profound sense of peace and purpose
right where you are. The prison, when viewed through the lens of the soul, reveals itself to have been a monastery all along. You find your calling in the crucible of your current reality. Or the self-awareness, the clarity, and the inner authority you gain from this work becomes the very thing that gives you the courage to finally leave. Not with bitterness or resentment, but with gratitude for the lessons and with a clear, calm knowledge of where you are truly called to go next. For Sarah, it was the latter. After months of this inner work, she no longer felt like a teenager reacting to a critical father. She felt like a capable adult. She had learned the lesson of the tyrant king. And with this new, quiet confidence, she applied for a leadership role at a different company, a role she never would have thought she was good enough for a year earlier. She got the job. Her old job was not a mistake. It was not wasted time. It was the perfect, painful, necessary training ground. It was the fire that forged the leader who was waiting to be born. Pause here with me. What is the inner promotion that is waiting for you right where you are? What is the one recurring frustration at your job that is secretly a weight waiting for you to lift it and grow stronger? The truth that all of Carl Jung's work points to is that the soul can find its curriculum anywhere, in a monastery, in a marriage, and, yes, even in a cubicle. The question is not, is this the right job for me? The deeper question is, am I willing to do the great work right here, right now? But this alchemy is not always about growth and promotion. Sometimes the laboratory of life presents us with a different kind of experiment. An experiment in loss. What happens when the crucible is not a difficult job, but a broken heart? What happens when the structure that is meant to hold us, a significant relationship, shatters into a million pieces?
Today, we have dared to reimagine one of the most draining parts of modern life. We have learned to see our workplace not as a prison to be endured, but as a laboratory to be engaged with. We have seen how the characters on this mythic stage, the boss, the colleague, the demanding project, are not random obstacles. They are mirrors, teachers, unpaid gurus sent by your own soul to show you exactly where your next layer of healing lies. This is the great empowering promise of Carl Jung's psychology. It is a path that does not require you to escape your life in order to find your soul. It invites you to find your soul in the very heart of the life you are already living. Your job does not have to be your passion for it to be your path. Every trigger is a clue. Every frustration is an assignment. The person who can consciously work with the archetypal dramas of the office without being consumed by them is forging a resilience and a self-awareness that is unshakable. This is the inner promotion. It is the only one that truly matters. And the great paradox is this: when you stop desperately needing to escape your job, you are finally free to leave it or to stay, not as a victim, but as a conscious choice. So I invite you now to a final ceremony, a quiet ritual to anoint your workplace as a sacred space, to shift your own role from prisoner to alchemist. If you are willing, right now, to consciously reframe your relationship to your work, to see every frustration as a clue and every trigger as a teacher, I invite you to a courageous act of declaration in the comments below. Think of one, just one, recurring frustration at your job, the difficult boss, the boring task, the competitive colleague. And in the comments, I invite you to claim it as your own curriculum. Write these powerful alchemical words. My is my assignment. For example, my difficult boss is my assignment. Or, my fear of public speaking is my assignment. Let this not be a complaint. Let this be a declaration of power. A promise to your own soul that you will no longer wait for a different life to begin your great work. The work begins now. The lab is open. After we have learned to find the soul's curriculum in the structured world of work, we are often called to an even deeper, more chaotic laboratory, the laboratory of the heart. In our next video, we will explore one of the most profound alchemical fires a human being can endure, the end of a significant relationship. We will learn how to navigate heartbreak, not as a failure, but as a sacred passage of the soul. But for now, just be here, in the quiet power of this new perspective. Your work is your work, and it is holy ground.